Good afternoon and welcome everyone. My name is Paula Mendelara and I am the Senior Vice President of Sales at Sourcebooks. I am so thrilled to be here this afternoon to introduce our publisher and CEO of Sourcebooks, Dominique Raca, as well as 6 remarkable authors on our list. I had the immense pleasure of spending time with 3 of our authors, Tara Shelton Harris, Nancy Horan, and Anna Wong at Winter Institute in Seattle last week, and they are just incredible. I'm so excited for you all to hear from them. In April, I will be celebrating my 1-year anniversary at Sourcebooks, and it has been such a remarkable year. Working with Dominique and the amazing team she has assembled in executing the Sourcebooks mission that books change lives has been beyond rewarding. Being a part of the Sourcebooks team ignites the passion that we all have for this industry and for books and our authors, and it is all thanks to our leader, Dominique. Dominique Raca is the entrepreneurial publisher and CEO of Sourcebooks, the company she founded from her home in 1987. Dominique has won every innovation award that the industry gives and was named Publishers Weekly Person of the Year in 2016. Through the years, she has led our continuously growing, pioneering general book publishing house to become the largest woman-led book publisher in the country, producing everything from adult fiction and nonfiction, teen fiction, top titles in children's books, college guides, and more. Sourcebooks has created scores of New York Times bestsellers, hundreds of national bestsellers, and #1 selling titles in perennial categories. We work with our retail partners to experiment and develop new ways to inspire and delight their customers and create books that have extraordinary impact. Dominique is deeply interested in expanding readership and relationships, creating a world of readers and connecting authors and readers in new ways. Dominique, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Paula. That was really cool. And it's been so great this last year working together. Absolutely amazing. And of course, thank you to all of the booksellers, the librarians, and the other industry folks who are on this call with us today. We have some truly remarkable authors to share with you, and I can't begin to tell you how excited I am to hear them share their stories with all of us today. I think one of the cornerstones of Sourcebooks is that we're really interested in making sure that we are serving authors and customers. It really is an author-led and a customer-led enterprise as opposed to a publisher-led enterprise. And so for us, that means that we listen to our bookseller and librarian partners. You're on the forefront with readers. You put books into their hands, books that they're going to fall in love with, books that they need. You're the bridge between our authors and their fans. And our job as publishers is to provide you with 2 things. First, great books that we will all love and believe in and that will make a difference. And the second is the information you need to be successful about those books, especially as we continue to live in a fast-paced world that requires a great deal of agility to navigate. So today I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the extraordinary world in which we're living. It's a world in which mind-bogglingly, it's a world in which readership is expanding. It's a world in which new groups of readers, different kinds of readers, are discovering new kinds of authors. And this demographic and psychographic shift that we're seeing in readers changes everything. It changes everything for booksellers, for librarians, and of course for publishers. One example of that is the changes that we're seeing in romance. So romance is a category. I think for many, many years, we used to think of that as the paperbacks, the mass market paperbacks that you found in drugstores or in other kinds of locations. But today and always, romance has been a huge category for our industry, and it's been a huge growth category for Sourcebooks as well. But the genre has really changed over the last few years. I mean, I've always loved love stories, but I know so many more people whose reading patterns have shifted towards this new kind of romance during the pandemic. Book Talk, of course, part of the huge impact that we're seeing, but the readership itself grown and changed. The question then becomes, how do we adapt to this new readership and to new discovery tools? And it may mean checking in with our staff or your staff to see who you have who's already passionate about the genre, who is up to date on the changes that are constantly happening. Maybe you're trying to get a firm grasp on which of these books are right for your library or for your store. Your staff might not have a romance fiction lover yet. I'm going to say yet here. And in all of these instances, we would love to help you. We have a dedicated romance team who love talking about books and trends. We have mega best-selling authors that you need to have because it will help you bring fans into your stores and library. And we always love helping you to find that next big author that your customers are going to fall in love with. We've been putting together a lot of resources around this. And if you haven't received them, please reach out to Valerie Pierce. She's our Senior Director of Marketing. She is on this call, and we'll drop her email in the chat. Romance is just one example. We have a lot of others that of places where we are growing enormously. You can talk about the extensive work we've done with book clubs and book club titles. You're going to be hearing from Nancy Horan today, which is going to be just amazing to me. We have an amazing collection of nonfiction. Nonfiction actually where we started. You're going to be hearing from Bill today. His book is extraordinary. I can't wait to get it into your hands. It is our goal to provide you with the information you need. We are here to serve you. That's what we do. So it's why we are growing really remarkably. You can see it in the numbers. This year, the industry is down to, we're up over 60%. It's kind of mind-boggling, I know. Last year, we were up also these huge numbers. I was just on a call with PW actually, like yesterday or the day before. They're putting an article together about that. The numbers are, in fact, mind-boggling to me. I did not never expected to start in a bedroom and have this kind of impact in the world of books that I love so much. And, but it really is because of you, because of the work that you do each and every day, putting books into people's hands. And I am so thankful and grateful for our continued partnership. It means the world to us and to our authors. And now it's time to learn about some of the future bestsellers that you'll want to have on your shelves. I'm going to pass it back to Paula, our moderator, who will introduce our first author. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much, Dominique. We're going to dive right into true crime with Jillian Lauren, who we all refer to as our real-life Agent Starling here at Sourcebooks. Jillian Lauren is the New York Times bestselling author of the memoirs Everything You Ever Wanted, Some Girls, and the novel Pretty. She is married to Weezer bass player Scott Schreiner, and they live in Los Angeles, California. Jillian, will you tell us about your upcoming book, Behold the Monster?
Yes, I will. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I am honored to be here. That actually put a little tear in my eye, which you wouldn't think from a pretty hardcore true crime author, but I want to bounce a little bit off the idea of the genre of romance being elevated and being reinvented in this moment, and the merging of entertainment and critical thinking and not looking away from horror as much as looking at it through a different lens. You know, through the lens largely for me of the victim and also from the serial killer who is the most prolific serial killer in American history. This is my book, Behold the Monster. It is a monster. And I was writing a mystery novel when I interviewed famous detective Mitzi Roberts, who you will know because she is the detective Renee Ballard in Michael Connolly's famous series. I also worked with Rick Jackson, who is the real Harry Bosch, who told me to get down off that fence, think a little harder, kiddo, and why you gotta act like a fucking jerk? Can I say that? Anyway, he's far saltier than the HBO Harry Bosch, and he taught me how to read an investigation report and how to work through these murders, which I solved. Um, a handful of. There are 93 confessions currently. I was instrumental in getting the confessions from Samuel Little. There are 61 confirmations, which makes him, as far as the FBI is concerned, the most prolific serial killer in American history. I spent almost every day of my life talking to him for 2.5 years. I worked on this for 4 years. I drove across the country and back and met prostitutes, women who had worked as prostitutes in Mississippi in the 80s. I hung out with the Texas Rangers, not the baseball team, the cowboy ones. I'm from Jersey. That was a little different. It was a remarkable journey. I'm really proud of the work I did on this book, and I'm proud also of how much heat it's brought to this story, because it's unusual. I brought a couple of props for you because, I keep this rap sheet here, and I keep it here so I can check, because you try to remember all this, all right? It's 125 pages long. And then I was like, this isn't anything I can check during an interview. So in case I can't remember exactly what year Carol Alford was murdered, it was 89. But so I want to show you that. I want to show you also, and this is important, it will be on my website. I have the only comprehensive list that I know, because the FBI, it takes time for cases to clear and for them to update their website, of a full victim list, solved and unsolved, that I'm hoping the web sleuth community, who's been so supportive and amazing with me, will get involved and get their hands in, because none of this can be done by one person. And then I have, if you'd like to see his art, because Sam was an artist, this is the only self-portrait he ever drew. Mostly he drew his victims and pictures of Rihanna and Condoleezza Rice, and that's the truth. Anyway, this is Sam as seen by Sam. This is me as seen by Sam. This is Alice Denise Duval. I got 2 pictures of her. And this is the murder I solved from top to bottom. I'm very close to the family, and that was pretty cool. And this is an artistic rendering of Samuel Little's movements across the U.S. So the black dots are solved, the open dots are still Jane Doe's, missing persons, Sam picked his victims because they were marginalized, because he knew the police wouldn't follow up, because he knew they likely wouldn't even be reported, or if they were transgender, would be misgendered. They've been ignored for decades, and we have new technology now that allows us to dig into these cases again. So I think it's a super exciting story. I messed up so much along the way. Whew. It scares me to read it. Don't go down to that basement, but I think come down into the basement. That's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Jillian. That was fascinating. Now I'm going to introduce you to a different type of nonfiction that will show you how humans built the world as we know it today, from YouTube sensation Bill Hammack. Bill Hammack is a professor of engineering at the University of Illinois and the host of the Engineer Guy YouTube channel. His work has received 9 national awards from a diverse group of engineering, scientific, and journalistic societies. In 2019, he was the recipient of the prestigious Carl Sagan Award. He lives in Chicago with his family. Bill, will you tell us about the things we make?
Yeah, I would be happy to. I have a copy of it right here. The things we make is, sorry, my screen. There we go. All right. The things we make is about the most powerful problem-solving method we humans have brought to bear on our planet. It's universal across cultures and throughout history. And in fact, no society has survived without some form of the engineering method. And yet it's unknown. It's invisible to most people. And the point of this book is to make it visible, because our built world results from that method. And most people assume it to be a mere subset of the scientific method. But the results of engineering are not the products of science. Scientific method rather creates knowledge, but the engineering method creates solutions. In other words, there's a common sense notion that science discovers and then engineering applies, and it's inverted because paradoxically, the reason for engineering is to solve problems before we have scientific knowledge. And so to reveal the engineering method, I tell stories from across historical eras and cultures, and I expose in that the creativity of engineers and demonstrate that engineering solutions represent human intelligence at its most supple. And here's just a sample of the kind of things that we, touch on in the book. Along the way, we visit a mysterious ruin in southeastern Turkey that's created from huge, intricately carved stones. It was built 6,000 years before Stonehenge, 5,000 years before the first pyramid, which highlights that for millennia, humans have used the engineering method to solve problems. From there, we examine the stunning cathedrals of the Middle Ages, revealing how they're constructed by people who knew no math, could not read, drew no blueprints, and knew no science as we think of it today. We visit ancient Egypt to see how they extract the juice from grapes to make wine, and then we compare it to more sophisticated technologies of the much less known people of the Amazon who lived in present-day Brazil, and we learn of their ingenious method to remove poison from their main staple, manioc. We see how the availability of materials, energy, and knowledge influence the designs of engineers. We visit ancient Mesopotamia to study raft design, take note of the fantastic clocks of Middle Ages Islamic civilizations, zip to the 20th century to see how an engineer named Yvonne Brill powers the satellites that circle our globe. We see the engineering method in the action, in the work of the great potter Joshua Wedgwood as he creates his enduring masterpieces. And I revised the story of how we think about the most iconic invention of all time, the invention that defines innovation, the light bulb. I tell it in a way that moves beyond the solitary genius model of invention featuring only Thomas Edison and expand it to include others who are similar in developing that first practical light bulb. I trace the origins of the microwave oven to its root in World War II radar and highlight its forgotten history. You could buy a microwave oven in 1946. And I don't neglect the 21st century We learn how engineer Francis Arnold, winner of the Chemistry Nobel Prize in 2018, used the injuring method to create enzymes that work in our laundry detergents. And my book is supported by a video series. It's 4 videos. They're about 12 minutes each. They illustrate and amplify some of the stories I tell in the book. And what I want to share with you is that these videos are released under a Creative Commons license, which means that you're free to use them in any way you want, reposting, reversioning, playing in stores, in libraries without any further permission. If you have the technical acumen, you can even extract a section and use it on social media. If you don't have that technical skill, send me a note and I'll be happy to trim you a clip and send it to you or upload it in a place that you can link to it. And 2 last shout outs, one to the publisher Dominique. We haven't met before, but she was seminal in this book. I'd written a book proposal, developed it, sent it in. Everyone liked it, went to the top. Dominique said no. And I was called, my editor gave me a call and said, she says you have a better book in you. And I was quite angry. And then I thought for a day or two and said, do I want to bet against her? And I said, no. And indeed, I think a much, much better book came out. And lastly, a shout out to my great local independent bookstore, The Literary, a beacon of knowledge and intellectual conversation and wine right down here in downtown Savannah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill. That was great. I devoured your book like popcorn. It was so accessible as well as interesting and educational. So thank you so much. Now we're going to move on to some fiction, and I'm thrilled to talk about a contemporary novel by a debut author who is already garnering a ton of buzz. Tara Shelton Harris is a collection development librarian based in Alabama and a freelance writer. She has been published in Women's Health, Natural Solutions, Every Day with Rachel Ray, Backpacker, Draft, and Women's Adventure. Tara is currently at a Black-owned bookstore in New Orleans today doing a pre-publication event, but we all wanted to make sure that she had the opportunity to tell you about her amazing debut, One Summer in Savannah. So she kindly made this video for us. Caitlin, can you roll the video?
Hi, my name is Tara Shelton Harris, and I am the author of One Summer in Savannah, which tells the story of Sarah Lancaster, who's living a quiet life in coastal Maine with her 8-year-old genius daughter, Alana, who came into this world following a terrifying sexual assault. Until one day, Sarah received a phone call that her father is ill and she must return home to Savannah to face the ghost of her past. While taking care of her father and running his bookstore, Sarah is very desperate to protect Alana from the Weilers, the powerful family of the man who assaulted her, who have no idea Alana exists. Sarah thinks she can succeed until she accidentally runs into Jacob Weiler, the identical twin brother of the man who assaulted her, who recently returned home to try to understand the tragic event that affected both Sarah and his family. And when their 2 worlds collide, Sarah and Jacob are drawn together in unexpected ways. One Summer in Savannah is a story of love and redemption as Sarah and Jacob both discover what it truly means to forgive. One Summer in Savannah is inspired by the South Carolina church shooting. When days after that horrible tragedy, the survivors and relatives walked into a courthouse and forgave the shooter. And in that moment, I realized I don't know anything about forgiveness. I assumed that there were acts and behaviors that was unforgivable, and they taught me the opposite. And I knew right then that I wanted to write a book that challenged readers on what is or is not forgivable. One Summer in Savannah is also inspired by the Sarahs of the world. It is a work of fiction, but there is a real person who lives Sarah's story every day, and I am honored that she gave me an opportunity to share her story. But One Summer in Savannah is also inspired by the millions of Sarahs living in similar situations who conceive children through sexual assault, and these brave women who deal with this circumstance every day. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to tell you about my book, One Summer in Savannah. And thank you to all the independent booksellers and librarians in the world. I am also a very proud librarian. I have worked as a librarian for the last 15 years, and there is no greater honor than to serve my community. In fact, a few minutes before I recorded this video, I helped an elderly gentleman send and receive pictures that he received from his granddaughter. He says, I know she's in there somewhere. And I said, okay, well, let's figure out how we can get her out of there. And it was such a great feeling to know, to help someone like him. So I thank you so much for what you do. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That was great. And we should mention that in the book, the protagonist's father owns an independent bookstore, which is a nice nod. So now I have the pleasure of introducing you to literary genius Nancy Horan and her new work of historical fiction. Nancy Horan is the New York Times best-selling author of Loving Frank and Under the Wild and Starry Sky. A native Midwesterner, Horan was a teacher and journalist before turning to fiction. She raised her 2 sons in Oak Park, Illinois, and now lives with her husband on an island in the Puget Sound. Nancy, will you tell us about House of Lincoln?
Yes, I'd be delighted to. Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you. You're great.
Great. You can see me. Great. Hi, I'm Nancy. This is House of Lincoln. I love the cover that Sourcebooks provided for me, and I love Sourcebooks. I'm happy to be with you. The House of Lincoln is the story of 3 families who are living in Springfield, Illinois during the middle of the 19th century, actually. They are the Lincolns, of course, who, when we meet them, have 3 children. And they are also a Portuguese family. They are religious exiles who have come from an island called Madeira in Portugal. And the 3rd family is the Donegans, who are a free Black family who have migrated from Kentucky to have better lives in the free state of Illinois. It turns out that these families interact with one another in surprising ways and influence each other profoundly over time. Anna Ferreira is our primary narrator, and she's 11 years old when she is working as a translator for her mother. She's a bright girl, learned the language, learned English early on, and runs errands for neighbors, does the kind of things that require success with the English language. She has befriended a girl at this open air market where both of their mothers work. It's on a place called Chicken Row in Springfield. And the girls are quick friends. And after the market is over and they're finished taking care of their brothers, they go off and they explore the town and run errands for people in their neighborhoods. And it turns out that on one occasion, they experienced a terrifying event where while in a shoe store, it happens to be Lincoln's shoemaker's shoe store, they experience slave hunters who are in the shop and are trying to shake down the owner to find out what he knows about a missing man who's on the run. So Anna at 13 then goes to work for the Lincolns, and there she has a front row seat, observing a stormy and loving relationship between the Lincolns. She takes care of their unruly children, and she is exposed to the changing attitudes and exploration of slavery and racism on the part of Abraham Lincoln. In the Donegan household, the free Black African-American household, runaways are a commonplace event. William Donegan, who is Lincoln's shoemaker, is an Underground Railroad operator, a conductor, and his whole family gets drawn into the whole enterprise. The story of the Donegans is really told by his brother Spencer, who is a minister and also a barber to Abraham Lincoln. And this is all based on real history, so these are true characters, these people. Anna is fictionalized, but she is based on the life experiences of Portuguese religious exiles making their way to Springfield. And so her story is a true story also. But Spencer is a barber who cuts Lincoln's hair. And while Lincoln is in his chair, he challenges him to certain ideas about slavery and equality. The third point of view is Mary Lincoln's. So you enter her mind, you understand her frustrations with her husband, who's always gone. They both come from Kentucky, but very different places. He is a poor man, self-educated, from an anti-slavery family. He only had 1 year of actual schooling. Mary has attended finishing school. She's educated more than most girls her age. She speaks fluent French. She's also from Kentucky and from a slaveholding family, but she falls in love with him, and we learn about their background and how they came together. We follow these three families through the buildup to the Civil War. You'll see the debates between Lincoln and Stephen Douglas that really led to Lincoln being recognized as a candidate for the presidency. Anna, we will see the families move through the aftermath of the Civil War, during the Civil War, also how they all became engaged in it in one way or another. But Anna will live long enough to also see the 1908 race riot that occurred in Springfield, Illinois, that so shocked America because it was the home of the great emancipator. And it was profound enough in its horror to cause the formation of the NAACP. It involved the lynching of two Black men in Springfield, and one of them was a very elderly and frail William Donegan, Lincoln's former barber, who was lynched. That was one of the motivations for me writing this book. I grew up in Springfield, Illinois. I thought I knew a lot about the place, but I learned a lot doing this book. I think I was inspired to write this book because of the divisiveness that is plaguing our country right now. And I think that it is, when I've heard talk about we're approaching another civil war, I think that's dangerous talk. It's worrisome talk. I hope it's not true. 700,000 people were killed in the Civil War. And so that was one inspiration. Certainly the fact that Lincoln's connection to the 1908 race riot and William Donegan was another. And then it was about 8 years ago, I happened upon a couple of YouTube videos, and one was at Texas Tech University. It was a young woman who was out there doing man on the street interviews. And she asked students who won the Civil War. And person after person could not say who won the Civil War. And not even that, some did not know what the Civil War was. And that just kind of blew my mind. And then she followed up with another interview at George Mason University in Virginia, where there were similar results. And I thought, we need to know history enough to know what to avoid. And so that's why I came to tell these stories of these three people, these three families, and none of these people faced an easy path. The Ferreras escaped an oppressive country only to come to a new nation where a war was about to start and they were going to have to participate in it. The Donegans left a slave state to go to a free state and encountered Black laws that were as bad as any in the South. And Abraham Lincoln did not acquire a united North very easily. There was a lot of resistance in the North. And Mary Lincoln's ambition to live in the White House, which is something she had wanted to do since she was a kid, apparently, turned out to be fraught with danger. There were constant threats on the life of her husband and her family. I think that knowing history can really enlarge our knowledge and enlarge our compassion as a country and as a people. And it can also enlarge our courage, just admiring the courage of the people in these families. So I think that Lincoln urged us to rely on our better angels. And I hope this book helps us do that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. It was such a wonderful read. I'm now going to move into romance and introduce you all to Anna Wong, a beloved book talk star whose steamy romances are fan favorites. Anna Wong is a USA Today, international, and #1 Amazon bestselling author. Best known for her Twisted series, she writes new adult and contemporary romance with deliciously alpha heroes, strong heroines, and plenty of steam, angst, and swoon sprinkled in. Her books have been sold to over 24 foreign publishers for translation and featured in outlets such as NPR, Cosmopolitan, Financial Times, and Glamour UK. Anna, can you tell us about King of Wrath?
Yes, I am happy to. Hi, everyone, and thank you, Paula. I am really excited to be here to talk to you today and turn up the heat a little bit, talking about my latest book, King of Wrath. This is the first book in my Kings of Sin series, which is a series of billionaire contemporary romances that's themed around the 7 deadly sins. I'm not sure why. I'm sure there's some sort of psychological explanation for it, but I've always kind of been drawn to these numbered themes like the 7 sins or the 4 horsemen or the 12 zodiac signs. So when I saw the opportunity to marry that with my love for romance, I took it. And King of Wrath, like I mentioned, is the first book. It is a steamy arranged marriage, dislike to love romance with kind of Gossip Girl, Crazy Rich Asians vibes, very high heat. And it tells the story of Dante, who is a CEO that comes from a very powerful old money family, and Vivian, a jewelry heiress who comes from a more new money family. And her family is really interested in kind of getting into these parts of like old money society that they can't get into just because of their newer money status. So her father decides to, as one does, blackmail Dante into an arrangement with her. So as you can imagine, Dante and Vivian don't get along very well in the beginning. Dante, because he's forced to get engaged to this woman that he barely knows. Vivian, because she just thinks he's a jerk. But they do have to move in together for the sake of their engagement. And as they get to know each other a little better, they start to gradually fall in love. But of course, these things can't be that easy, and there are some obstacles along the way. Namely, Dante is determined to get revenge on her father for blackmailing him, and they also have to go through some of the difficulties that come from being part of an interracial relationship. He's Italian, she is Chinese, and by virtue of their cultural backgrounds, as well as their personalities and the way that they're raised, they have very different ideas of what familial relationships and filial piety should be. And I wrote this book for a couple of different reasons. One is I always love to see more Asian leads in romance. You know, I loved romance growing up. It was my favorite genre. And it was really hard for me to find people that looked like me as a main character. So when I started writing, I am very conscious of putting a lot of Asian and diverse characters into my stories. I also really wanted to touch on some of the realities of being in an interracial relationship and some of the difficulties that may come from that, although this is a romance, so of course there is a happily ever after. And finally, I really wanted to explore the personal growth for both of these characters. Even though this is a romance story, it's actually 3 stories in one. So one, it's about Dante's personal growth and the story of how he grapples with his need for vengeance alongside his growing feelings for Vivian. It's a story of how Vivian is able to learn how to stand up to her family and kind of the person that she is, not just with her friends and with Dante, which is someone who is very confident and capable, and how she is able to marry that with the person that she is with her family, which is someone a lot more kind of obedient just by virtue of the way that she was raised. And then, of course, the story of how they are together and how they make each other better people. So I had a lot of fun writing this, and I'm really excited for it to come out this April with Sourcebooks. And thank you to everyone for joining and listening.
Thank you, Anna. And we're also excited that it's going to be a 7-book series. So we have more to look forward to after April as well. Now, last but certainly not least, is Claire Legrand. I know everyone here is familiar with Claire's incredible YA novels, and we could not be more excited to introduce Claire's debut adult novel on our Sourcebooks Casablanca list. Claire Legrand is the New York Times bestselling author of several novels for children and young adult, most notably the Imperium trilogy, Saw Kill Girls, and Some Kind of Happiness. She lives in New Jersey, and A Crown of Ivy and Glass is her first novel for adults. Claire, will you tell us more about A Crown of Ivy and Glass?
Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here today. Before we get started, I wanted to say thank you to Sourcebooks for putting together this event, and to everyone in our audience today for spending this time with us. Librarians and booksellers make our work possible. Quite simply, you help readers find our books. We could not do this without you. And for the work that you do, I am so, so grateful. Speaking of librarians, I know there are a lot of you watching right now, and I wanted to mention that though I write full-time at the moment, I'm a librarian myself. Go libraries. And libraries have always been an integral part of who I am. I wanted to share with you one of my favorite library memories before I jump into the book. My parents took me to the public library where I grew up in Texas all the time, and my favorite branch was a humble little space that was part of a shopping center, not glamorous whatsoever, very tiny, but to me it was a magical place. My parents raised me on Star Trek, live long and prosper. And it was in this particular library that I first discovered that there are not only Star Trek movies and TV shows in the world, but also books, which was such a revelation. With the exception of my parents and one dear friend, I didn't know anyone else who loved Star Trek the way I did. It was a passion that most kids at school did not share. So when I found these Star Trek paperbacks at the library shelved on one of those spinning wire racks, I felt as though I had stumbled upon the world's most astonishing secret. Like, wait a minute, there are Star Trek books. This combined my 2 greatest loves, books and Star Trek. And I felt like the people who worked at this library understood my nerdy heart in a way very few people did. And that's a sentiment that I still feel every time I talk to a librarian or a bookseller, every time I step into a library or a bookstore. These are my people. They love stories as much as I do. And here I am seen and I am safe. So thank you again for being here today. I'm really excited to tell you a little bit about my upcoming book, A Crowd of Ivy and Glass. Here it is. It's so pretty. Thank you, Sourcebooks, for the gorgeous cover. It's the first book in my Middle Mist trilogy, and it's my adult debut. It's a dark fantasy romance that I like to describe as Bridgerton meets A Court of Thorns and Roses. The series is about the three Ashbourne sisters, Gemma, Farron, and Mara, and they are trying to save the Middle Mist, an ancient magical barrier that protects their world from the old country, a realm of wild magic and the birthplace of the gods. Malevolent forces are trying to destroy the Middle Mist, of course, and wreak havoc on both realms, and the Ashbourne sisters might be the only ones who can stop them. Each book is devoted to a different sister. Book 1, A Crown of Ivy and Glass, is Gemma's book. She is in part a tribute to one of my favorite Jane Austen heroines, Emma Woodhouse. She's spoiled, gorgeous, rich, but she's also deeply sad. She's the only one in her family who can't perform magic, and she suffers from chronic pain and debilitating panic attacks. To make matters worse, her family is at war with another influential family, the Basques, thanks to the meddling of a bloodthirsty demon who's had his claws deep in both clans for years. Gemma's family is so wrapped up in this feud that Gemma is often left by herself, plagued by loneliness that no amount of beautiful dresses and lavish parties can soothe. But then, at one such lavish party, she meets one of her father's guests, the enigmatic and drop-dead gorgeous Talon Dastier, who is determined to redeem his family's ruined name. Gemma is immediately intrigued by this man, who seems to carry a sadness as great as her own. They strike a bargain. Gemma will help Talon rebuild his family's reputation if he will help her destroy the Basque family and slay the demon that controls them all. I had two goals when I began planning this series. One was to write something that brought me pure, unabashed joy. A couple of years ago, I went through a major mental health crisis that made me wonder if I really wanted to continue writing. Ultimately, I decided that yes, I did want to write, but I needed to make doubly sure that every project I took on brought me joy and excitement and felt true to who I am. And A Crown of Ivy and Glass has literally everything I love. Sumptuous descriptions of costuming and architecture, an earthy, kind of scary magic system, complex women who have all kinds of complex relationships, grotesque monsters and cosmic mayhem, and of course, passionate romances. This is a fantasy of elevated escapism for people who prefer a healthy dash of monsters and dark magic in their romantic beach reads, because who doesn't love that? My other goal when planning this series was to write about mental health challenges in a fantasy setting. Gemma and her sisters all live with anxiety and depression, and when building their characters, I drew heavily upon my own experiences living with these illnesses. I wanted to write stories in which, yes, the heroine is mentally ill, but also learns how to live with and treat that illness, which doesn't magically go away, and also falls in love and saves the day. Because depressed, anxious girls can be romantic, badass fantasy heroines too, you know? That's really important for me to write about, and something I would have loved to see more of growing up when I was slowly figuring out how my own brain works. So I'm so excited for you to read it. Here it is again, so beautiful, A Crown of Ivy and Glass. And I'm also excited to share Farron's and Mara's books with you in the years to come. Thank you again for everything you do to connect books with their readers and to create safe spaces for book nerds everywhere. I hope you love reading A Crown of Ivy and Glass as much as I loved writing it.
Thank you so much, Claire. That was really amazing. And I'm sure we're all extremely excited for your book to come out. A huge thank you to all of our authors for being here today. And for all of our partners on the call who joined us. We're all incredibly excited about these authors and their upcoming books, and we're thrilled we had the opportunity to share them with you. Now you just need to make sure you go to Edelweiss or NetGalley to download them, read them, and fall in love with them the way we have here at Sourcebooks. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.